But people keep asking to see the design brief, so we thought, what the heck, we'll let you see.
So a mission is built out of objective types, and the mission type really is just the most critical or challenging objective in that mission.
Currently, we have a number of mission types in the game. Some of these are not built in that modular sense. Some of these are very much bespokely built to test out a feature at one time. The original PI Wanted is one of those. The current mission types that do exist is we have deliveries, which are essentially a form of collect and drop off. We have eliminate missions, which is just kill someone, and eliminate ship missions, which is go there and kill destroy a ship that has a person inside of it. And there's many more. The way we see missions is they're comprised of little bits of gameplay. So, for example, we have missions where you're sent to kill a singular person or pick up a box or kill a bunch of enemies. So the way how we build our missions is we combine these together. So we'll have missions where you have to pick up a box, but we'll have enemies there that you have to kill as they're kind of like an obstacle for you to get around.
That isn't to say that you can't build a mission out of a single objective. The assassination mission, for instance, has one objective: assassinate a target. But even the most simplistic mission, like the delivery mission, is actually built out of two objectives. There's the collection of the item and the delivery of the item. And if we made the collection of that item even more difficult, we'd refer to it as a collect mission rather than a deliver mission.
So our objective types, for the time being, have been pretty simple. Kill this person, go here, do this. Until now, we're now looking at doing one of the most complex type of objective and gameplay things we've tackled in MFT. With that said, we're working on a new mission type, and that's investigation. Currently in the game, the player can feel like a bounty hunter, a mercenary, a person who does deliveries, a cargo hauler. We want to make them feel like a detective as a new route. We're expanding constantly. We're building.
I hope they do a really good detective system in the game, because I was playing what's it called, the Batman games, right? Like Arkham Knight, and Arkham Knight has a better I think it's Arkham Asylum or something like that. But anyway, it had a better system for detective work. But then the new game that came out, Gotham Knights, it's totally, it's such a bad system. The detective system, super bad. But anyway, let's move on. Let's do this. That's the kind of missions I would like to see in the game. Into Star Citizen. Have your brain work a little bit. Not make it so easy. Just shoot them up and that's it. You're done. No, I like a little bit of mystery, puzzles and stuff like that in the game. That would be great.
Building mining, salvage, and detective is going to be our focus in MFT.
The experience we want to give players with the investigation mission is that they feel like a detective, that they feel like they're collecting evidence that will ultimately answer the question that has been posed to them, and that they're able to kind of search through the evidence and find the red herrings and choose the right answer.
So what we want is we want to build a mission that requires you to have to think, requires you to have to look around, search your environment in detail, look at each individual clue and make sure you fully understand it before you make your decision as the detective.
And there'll also be red herrings thrown in there, so evidence will really have to be poured over to be able to determine whether it's actually credible or not. We also wanted to create narratives around our locations that we haven't done before, really dig into, why has this derelict become a derelict? Or why have all the ship's crew come to be dead? Or why has this cargo gone missing? At the core of this mission, we're really asking the player to use their brain rather than their gun or their ship.
So for this mission type, I don't want to breadcrumb players along. I want you to feel like a detective. I will give you a story, I will give you little bits of clues, and you have to make up this full sort of painting and decide exactly what has happened here. And then the rest of the decision is on yours. I might not tell you if it's wrong or right, you might find out. The idea is that you feel like a detective and you're so sure of your decision that you're going with that. So the next stage in this whole process is building a pitch. You know, we have to come up with our ideas, how we want it to work, and then we have to present it to CR, Tony, and Todd, and make sure they're all happy with it and all of our visions are aligned. So when we're building the pitch, we start off by going over the ideal experience we want for the player. We start off with the most advanced things, all the gameplay mechanics we could dream of to bring this sort of role to life as a detective. And then we have to start looking at stripping it back to see when we can release it, what's the minimum viable product for this experience.
And in the case of the investigation mission, we came up with two. So the first pitch is extremely simple, and it revolves around being able to find a definite answer, like something that is undisputable. For instance, we came up with a mission where there is a repairman that's gone missing, and you can go to his office and you can find some correspondence that will lead you to another place, which will have his work itinerary on there, and they're all crossed off until one. And if you're smart, you'll go to that location, and should you go to that location and do a little searching, you'll find his body there, and he's been electrocuted, fixing the final thing on his list. And there's your definitive ending. Whereas the second pitch, it's more about allowing the player to choose when they're done, like when they think they have solved the mystery. And the way we do this is we scatter evidence around the location and clues that lead you to that evidence. And obviously there can be red herrings in there. You can get your answer up to a credible state, which might still be the wrong answer but you can complete the mission then. Whereas if you'd have carried on digging a little more, maybe found a few more clues and followed them, you would perhaps find an indisputable piece of evidence, I did it kind of thing, that would get you the bonus for the mission. And both pitches had their strengths and weaknesses. The simple pitch, we could see how easy it was to scale, and it involved less complex narrative work. But we ultimately decided to go for the second because we liked the idea of giving the player the agency to decide when they were done. So we're in the prototype phase with the investigation mission, which is more important than ever because it's such a complex mission, and we need to ensure that it's scalable and that other designers can make their own mysteries with it.
With the pitches, we can now prototype and sort of get that gameplay feel and see which one we want to explore more for the player's experience. Some of the hardest points of this are going to be the scalability of it. An investigation at its core is a story, so the story should always be at the forefront and the focus.
So the first stage of prototyping was to prove that we could make it a mystery happen in the most restricted location we have, which was a derelict. So this kind of interplay between the crew of it. From there, we're going to expand so that it takes into account more locations and uses all of the evidence retrieval interactions that we currently have. For instance, you can kill a guy and get information off him. You can find a corpse, get information off it. You can loot a box, get information off it. And then we'll be prototyping the newer ways of getting information off of things. We're looking into using the med gun to find the name and cause of death of people. And we're looking into being able to find the mobile asset in inventory and download data from it.
One of the hardest things that we have to figure out is the story. The investigation will live and die by its story. So we work very closely with the writers to try and figure out what kind of story we want to tell, what kind of clues we want to give, and then after that point, we look at sort of what obstacles we want to put in your way. You know, keypad locked doors, enemies, like traversal puzzles, things like that.
The main challenge for creating this mission is ensuring that the player has enough guidance to complete it without putting mission markers on everything. Like, it is supposed to be about them searching, figuring clues out for themselves, and finding the answer themselves.
We want you to still feel like that detective, but ensure that we're giving you enough information in the ways that we can.
And we're working with the UI designer on the new mobiles, which should really help with this.
So this has been our video design brief on our investigation missions. We're really excited to bring these to you. We wanted to give you an early look to let you know what we're thinking and see what you're thinking about these as well.
And we're really excited about it because it will allow us to inject a lot more story into the persistent universe.
So with everything we do, iteration is a key part of how we build things. So by the time you see this, and maybe by the time it comes out, it might have changed drastically. We don't know yet. We're still working on it and figuring out the fine details. But player experience and player agency is at the focus of what we're trying to achieve.
We're really excited and hope you are too.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about this again in the future.
Well, that's a pretty cool system. We need variety, you know, diversity in the missions. So it'll make things a lot nicer so then you don't get as bored. Let's go on to the next one.
Hello, my name is John Griffiths. I'm a lead environment artist here at Star Citizen at Cloud Imperium. I'll do that again. Hi, my name is John Griffiths, and I'm a lead environment artist at Cloud Imperium Games. I'm heading up EU Sandbox 2, and we're working on the revamped underground facilities, which you saw at CitizenCon. This is also my first ISC episode, and it's also the first in our lovely new office. So I hope you enjoy.
That looks so sweet.
So after we've gone through that kind of concept development phase, where we're just fleshing out ideas, it's time to kind of think about what actually the underground facilities are going to be. How much time is the player going to be spending there? What are they going to be doing there? How many they're going to be? What kind of themes they're going to be? All that jazz we need to think about, and we also need to plan out how we're going to do it. So when we're in the stage of very early on in development, it's about kind of iterating quickly, getting into the editor, getting feedback on what we're doing, playing the location as a complete thing as fast as possible, because only when we see things in context of what they're going to be can we really make actual great decisions on what it is we're making. And this is a collaboration between art and design, mission content. The directors are involved. It's just molding the beast into something tangible, which we can then take into our planning stage to iron out what it is we need to create and how we're going to create them. So we've come out of pre-production. We now need to get a plan together so that the team can start working. So at the moment we can see all these boxes. All the ones on the top are rooms, all the ones underneath are overlays. So overlays give us that variety. When the team looks at this, they don't have to come to me to ask, does the surface structure medium need work doing to it or not? They can read it for themselves here. This is great because it gives us a big overview of what's required for the location. And it also means that we can break it down into kind of content packs. So our tier 0 is everything that we would need to release this into the universe with some variation. Our tiers after that kind of are additional content, which might flesh out some of the UGFs or give it a new theme or that kind of thing. So some of the rooms that are in production at the moment, let's just skip over to them. So this looks like one whole thing. It's actually two things. So it's the surface structure, which is this guy in the middle. and this kind of surrounding hangar. How do you actually get there? We've also got our physical elevator spaces. So if we go from the top, this is where you trundle down into the UGF on a lovely diagonal elevator. We've got the elevator shaft components themselves. So you might have really long elevator rides, you might have really short ones. And then where you end up at the bottom of the elevator ride, this room is currently in progress as well. This is a more refined plan to begin with. But we still need to get into the actual numbers of how much time this will actually take to make. So then we come to our trusty Microsoft Excel. And in here, this is just putting estimates on how long we think things will take. So for us, that's in this next phase, which is white boxing, we want to block the rooms out.
Whoa, that is a lot of work. But comment below and let me know what you all think about the underground and also the investigation missions. Yeah, and subscribe. Also, think about what ships you like and what parts of the CitizenCon do you guys and gals like. Yeah, I would like to know. So comment below. Let me know. Let's continue.
To add content, we want to get the gameplay in there. We want to split things into overlays, test it with our ProcGen tool, and get all that done. So we estimate this like this, and we put in all of those rooms that we called out before. We've got all the room types it can be and how big or small the thing is. So using this kind of grid, we can call out, well, there's one room that's got a retheme, there's 2 rooms which are medium and large that need to be done, and this calculates how much time is required. So you can look at it from room type, you can do the time that way, or you can look at how many medium rooms it will take. We can do it that way as well. This calculates it all, puts into a lovely little table, and then we can also call out how many artists there are, how many designers, how many days per artist, how many total days for a sprint, blah, 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 get all of that done. And that gives us our kind of ballpark figure to go with, to begin with. I think I might have to retake this.
No. You're doing good. At what point do we ignore all this? At what point do we ignore all this?
Okay, so it's all great having all of this, and it gives us a really good plan to begin with going forward. But as you probably know, game development isn't really a concrete process. You can have all the numbers in the world, but you'll still have things that kind of crop up out of nowhere. That is what game development really is. So from this point now, we can get back into the editor, we can start fleshing out these rooms, we can start doing these overlays, we can start finding the variety and really bringing these new underground facilities to life.
The new underground facilities, first seen at this year's CitizenCon showcase, have already moved into production, with designers and artists alike building out the currently spec'd out 93 different rooms and 196 overlay variations necessary to place them throughout the existing Stanton and upcoming Pyro star system. But while that's still many months away yet, let's go ahead and turn our attention to something coming in this December's Alpha 318. The imminent arrival of the next exciting parts of our new Gen 12 renderer. Now, bringing with it our collective hopes for improved performance, let's go now to Sylvan in our Frankfurt studio, who's got an update for us on the current progress.
This I'm looking forward to, because then better performance, more FPS, or more stable FPS, instead of it popping down, going way down, like other games that just recently came out, all the way down. But even Vulkan is even insane, because then you could get like 100 to 200. Sometimes even some games give you 300-400 FPS easily. The Vulkan engine is insane, really insane.
Hey everyone, I'm Silva. I'm engine programmer here at CRG, working on Gen 12 for the past years, and I'm incredibly excited to share with all of you the latest progress we've made on Gen 12. But first, let's get everyone on the same page real quick and explain what Gen 12 is, what it's not, and what it's trying to solve. This will just scratch the surface though. For a deeper look, I highly recommend watching our last year's CitizenCon progress update on Gen 12 and Vulkan. So Gen 12 in a nutshell is our new renderer, and we came up with this name as a natural step forward from DirectX 11, which Star Citizen right now pretty much all of you are using when playing the game. DirectX 11 is a graphics API which our engine interacts to make use of the GPU and renders all of Star Citizen's beauty. How fast a game engine can feed the graphics API or the GPU with rendering commands is dependent on two factors. First, the CPU performance, and second, the implementation of the rendering engine.
That's some beautiful looking ship. Jeez. Well.
And the latter is what Gen 12 is all about. It is from the ground up a complete redesign of our old rendering architecture, which decreases CPU submission time massively. The end goal of Gen 12, however, is to make use of a new graphics API called Vulkan, which will boost performance even more and also allows us to add new cool features like AI scaling, ray tracing, efficient multi-view rendering for VR, and Linux support, and more. This meant, however, we had to rewrite every single graphics feature and ensure that it's running smoothly and as expected on this new architecture. A daunting task, which takes years in a game like Star Citizen with its hundreds of different shaders, thousands of materials, and dozens of features actively used in production. You've seen our first milestone mid last year, 2021, with patch 3.14, when we had a few post-processing effects running on Gen 12 by default. This proved that our new rendering architecture was working as intended, and we could start heavily focusing on the scene object rendering, which is the biggest and the most time-consuming task for Gen 12. Almost a year later, with 3.17, we hit our next big milestone and could turn on Gen 12 for all our static geometry, including all scattered terrain objects. That was also the time when a lot of people saw an actual meaningful performance improvement in Star Citizen. Although, to be fair, that patch, Gen 12, was just one of many optimizations we employed there. The thing is, since then, the engine is running in a sort of mixed mode, which means most of the code is running through legacy and just calls into Gen 12, which is ported and works at the moment. This actually adds an additional overhead and is the reason why I didn't expect anything of a big performance improvement the last patch, and we didn't show anything or didn't announce anything. But I'm happy to announce, and very proud, that we're nearly done with porting absolutely everything to Gen 12, and not just the scene object rendering, but also our new path-centric rendering system. As we speak, we're fixing the last few things to get it fully ready for 3.18. This is not a promise, but we're working hard to make it possible. Also keep in mind that this first version of Gen 12 is just a it just works version. We haven't even started optimizing it yet at all, and you can expect huge improvements the following patches up until we can finally start making use of Vulkan. Enough talking, let's hop into the engine and take a look at a couple scenes while I'm explaining a few things to set reasonable expectations. Keep in mind that all of these tests are done in debug builds with one set of hardware and can result in a totally different experience on a different machine. Also note that Gen 12 primarily boosts CPU performance, so if you have a weak GPU or playing in very high resolutions, which is really demanding for GPUs, your game is probably GPU bound and you won't see much of a benefit. Okay, so let's take a look at the scene here in Orson, which is well known to be one of the most expensive cities in-game right now. Before we start, please do me one favor and don't look at the FPS, because this is a highly unoptimized build with highly unoptimized code and very expensive debug tracking, so any discussion about FPS here is completely meaningless. Alright, so on the right side we have this G3D API call info window, which tells us precisely how many draw calls and how many API calls we do every frame. This is the work the engine has to do to send commands to the graphics driver, which determines how fast the CPU can feed the GPU with commands to render our frame. This is pure legacy mode. We have 47,000 API calls, and let's switch it to Gen 12. So this is Gen 12 mode. The API.
Wow, that's some plug and play flash of a button. That's crazy. And then the FPS goes to, it went from 19 or I think 15 to what? Almost 30. That's pretty good. That's amazing, and that's just the first iteration, or just works. That's great. I like that. I wish it was that easy.
API calls dropped to about 33,000, which is quite significant for literally rendering the same scene. Okay, let's take a closer look behind the scenes. Well, let's take a look at this optic capture from that scene on Orson. Optic is a very helpful tool for us developers to get a very detailed understanding of what's going on in our engine. This includes what every thread is doing and when it is doing it. So let's take a look at the main and render thread, which are relevant for us in this context. Let's zoom in. And let's take a look at one of those frames here. So at the top, we've got the main thread. The main thread is what you could say the heart of the whole engine. It pretty much orchestrates everything, like when entities get updated, when physics get calculated, when do we render, and so forth. One of the main tasks is to figure out which objects are in our view system and which objects we want to render. This is what the main thread does on top of here. Once we figure that out, all that work is pushed into a queue to be processed by the render thread. At the bottom, we've got the render thread. And this is a very CPU intensive task, which is why it is leveraged by a completely dedicated thread. So what we can see here is that the render thread takes an immense amount of time to process one frame. In fact, it's so long that it even surpasses the work the main thread has to do. In this context, it means we are render thread bound, which means if we optimize the render, if we get it to run faster, we will see more FPS on the screen, as long as we are not GPU bound. So let's take a look at a Gen 12 frame. So here we've got a Gen 12 frame. Now the opposite is the case. The render thread runs faster than the main thread, which is indicated by this red bar here at the end. This means the render thread has to wait for the main thread to finish. And hence, in render thread bound scenarios, as long as we're not bound by the GPU, we will see an FPS increase. And if we zoom out here, we can see that every frame the render thread is quite faster than the main thread. And yeah, waits up to 20 milliseconds on some frames. Whereas in Legacy, yeah, the opposite is the case, and the main thread has to wait. To summarize, with the current Gen 12 renderer, we saw a tremendous amount of API call reduction than before, and depending on the scene, 50 to 100% faster render thread performance. Let me emphasize again that all these numbers are not final, and we haven't been optimizing Gen 12 at all yet, and you can expect more improvements in the future. It also depends highly on the hardware you're running at, so once it hits live and you're using it, let me know how it's working for you. So what's coming next, you may ask? Well, once we're fully done with Gen 12 and we can actually run Vulkan, there's still a lot of optimizations we have to do, like actually completely getting rid of the render thread, employ a fully multi-threading rendering approach, doing async compute, and so much more. The sky is the limit here. And since we're developing Vulkan in parallel at the moment, it is to be expected that once Gen 12 is fully working, it won't take long for you to have it in your hands too. But more about that in the future when it's actually ready. Last but not least, a big shout out to everyone involved in getting Gen 12 ready so far. And yeah, I hope you liked this little sneak peek into the future of Star Citizen's rendering engine. And feel free to drop any questions in Spectrum, and I'll gladly do my best to answer them. Thanks.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that resource planning is an essential step to ensuring your artists and designers are working efficiently to deliver locations like the new underground facilities quicker than ever before. That the new underground facilities themselves are already in production, and you can bet we'll be following along with their progress ahead of their scheduled release next year. And that the new Gen 12 renderer looks to relieve much of the current CPU bottleneck in the persistent universe, and that work will still continue after the next major milestone in the upcoming Alpha 3.18. Now don't forget that this year's Day of the Vara Halloween festivities are going on right now. You can check out all the details on the robertspaceindustries.com website. And if you're looking at what this new set and wondering what the heck's going on, maybe you should check out this year's CitizenCon 2952 full broadcast, which is available now on both our Twitch and YouTube channels. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee, broadcasting from inside the only constant. We'll see you back here next week.
That was interesting. So now we're gonna get the engine is gonna be more optimized. So the Star engine is an amazing game engine, because after Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are done, that Star engine is gonna be worth its weight in gold. Holy smokes! Oh my goodness. Wow. But this is also the IAE, which is coming up very soon. So we're going to do a little sneak peek. I hope everyone enjoyed this video or these the content, and please consider subscribing, liking the video, and comment below and let me know what parts you liked. And what ships you like as well. Just comment below, let me know. And stay tuned for more content. I'll be posting again on Monday. Yes, on Monday. So stay tuned for that, and just click the notification bell so then you could be updated whenever we put out new content. Here we go, and then this will be it for today. But thank you for watching, and enjoy and your rest of the weekend, and thank you very much. Until next time.
Join us for the biggest Whitley's Guide IAE special yet, with exclusive looks at all your favorite manufacturers. Drake CEO Andon Arden, Plus, surprises and announcements you won't want to miss. We'll see you there.
Hey, do you want to profit on a brand new megatrend that Google